The name of today's lesson is Interpreting Inequalities. We have two learning targets. Number one, I can write inequalities that involves more than one variable, and I can explain what the solution to an inequality means in a situation. So a big thing for today is we are going to be looking at inequalities as we have been the past few days, but we are going to think about what they mean in contextual, real-world situations. So, basketball game. Noah scored N points in a basketball game. What does 15 is less than N mean in the context of the basketball game? Go ahead and pause the video and try and answer that yourself. That means Noah scored more than 15 points. Because it is saying Noah's points are greater than 15, right? Because once again, normally when we think of the greater than symbol, it's facing to the left. But either way, we can always just look at the symbol, and we can see that the mouth is facing N, if it's like a little alligator. So it's saying that this points scored by Noah are greater than 15. Okay, so now here, what does N is less than 25 mean in the context of the basketball game? So once again, N represents the number of points that Noah scored. So that would mean Noah scored less than 25 points in the game. So once again, that's an inequality that represents a situation. In this case, Noah and the points he scored in a given basketball game. So now we need to draw two number lines to represent the solutions to the inequalities, meaning so all of the possibilities. So for this one, 15 is less than N, which is we could also imagine as being N is greater than 15. So that means he scored more than 15 points. If we want here, we can add 20 just to show that it's going up. So once again, this is an open circle because he scored more than 15 points. So he didn't score 15. He could have scored 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, whatever. And remember, in theory, this inequality goes on for infinity. So given this situation, in theory, we could say Noah scored 1,000,000 points. He didn't, but given this inequality, that is what it's saying to us. And here, N is less than 25. That's saying that he scored less than 25 points. Okay, so name a possible value for N that is a solution to both inequalities. So he scored more than 15, and he scored less than 25. So how about N equals 18? He could have scored 18 points. He could have scored 20 points. And if we substituted those both into the situation, so if we look back at this, 15 is less than N. So I substitute in that value, and it gives me a true statement. Then if I substitute 18 in for the other one as well, 18 is less than 25, it works. So these are both potential values. Okay? And so, name a possible value for N that is a solution to N is greater than 15, but not a solution to N is less than 25. Well, like we said before, if N is greater than 15, in theory, we could put, 100. Is 100 greater than 15? Yes. Is 100 less than 25? No. In the context of the basketball game, though, let's keep it kind of reasonable. Let's say 30. So N equals 30. And once again, 15 is less than 30, so it is a solution for this. But then when we plug it in here, is 30 less than 25? No, it is not. So 30 would be an example of a number that's a solution to this inequality, but not this. And number 6. Can negative 8 be a solution to N in this context? Explain your reasoning. What do you think? I'm going to say no. Because, so a big important word here is context. So once again, so if we're thinking of n is less than 25, right, -8 is included in that. However, in this context, have y'all ever heard of -8 points in a basketball game? I haven't. So no, because there are no such thing, as negative points in basketball. So it does fit within that inequality of n is less than 25, but it just doesn't make sense given the context. All right. So now we are going back to our unbalanced hangers. We have looked at these before. So Jada says that the weight of one circle is greater than the weight of one pentagon. Write an inequality to represent her statement. Let P be the weight of one pentagon and C be the weight of one circle. So, looking at this, we can imagine this like a scale. So if they were both the same weight, it would be perfectly across. But when something's heavier on a scale, it weighs it down. Once again, we can think of a seesaw, right? Like if you were a kid and one of your parents or an older sibling sat on one end of the seesaw, they would go down towards the ground and you would be stuck in the air because they were heavier. So heavier things pull down harder. So, P is the pentagon, C is the circle, and which one is greater, which one is heavier? The circle is heavier. So my mouth should be facing the circle because this is saying P, pentagon, is less than C. Okay, so, and we could also write that as C is greater than P. They mean the exact same thing. So, either way. A circle weighs 12 ounces. Use this information to write another inequality to represent the relationship of the weights. Then describe what this inequality means in this context. So, the circle weighs 12 ounces. So, I can just take this here, and I'm going to, so C is greater than P, I'll use this one, and I'm going to substitute in this value. Oops. Sorry, kind of started to write it the other way. There we go. So that means 12 is greater than the weight of the pentagon. So that means that the pentagon weighs less than 12 ounces. 12 is greater than the weight of the pentagon, so the pentagon weighs less than 12. Alright, so now here's another one. Write an inequality to represent the relationship of the weights. At this time, I would like you to pause this video and try and complete this page completely independently. Alright, so here is that other hanger. And here are the two inequalities you could have written. Either pentagon is greater than square, or square is less than pentagon. They both mean the same thing in both instances. The inequality symbol, its mouth is facing pentagon because the pentagon is heavier, right? Anything that weighs a scale down is the heavier object. Now, we have to, we are given a weight for the pentagon, so P equals 8, that's the value, and once again I'm substituting it into the inequality, so meaning I replace the pentagon with its weight, so the square weighs less than 8 ounces. So to graph this on a number line, weighs less than 8, so I have an open circle at 8, and it's less than, and less is left. And remember, so whenever we just have a basic inequality and we write that arrow, it's essentially saying that it goes on for forever. But, so that's what that inequality means, but does negative 10 make sense for S? According to the inequality, S is less than 8, that's a possible solution, but once again, just like how there are no negative points in basketball, there are no negative points, no such thing as negative weights. So, really, the inequality should be S is less than 8, and S is greater than 0. is what it should be. We were not given this, but using our minds, we know that there's no such thing as a weight below 0. So in theory, we should include that as well to make sure that it actually makes sense. All right, so based on your work so far, can you tell the relationship between the weight of a square and the weight of a circle? Well, I know the circle weighs more than a pentagon, and a pentagon weighs more than a square, so then the square has to be lighter than the circle, and the square is actually the lightest object, if you just work down, right? The circle's the heaviest because it's heavier than the pentagon, and then the pentagon's even heavier than the square, so square is actually the smallest, or the lightest object. All right, so now here we have a hanger, and Andre wrote, circle plus pentagon is less than square. Do you agree? So go ahead, take the time to answer this now, and then you can resume to check. I said no, because I know that the circle and the pentagon are heavier than the square, right? We just talked about that on the last page, and once again, we can see that it's weighing down the square, so it's heavier. So his inequality symbol is actually backwards. It should be circle plus pentagon is greater than S. Now Jada looks at another diagram of an unbalanced hanger and writes, square plus circle is greater than 2 triangles. Okay, so if we did that, we've got square, and then we've got circle, and then we've got 2 triangles. So remember, if you ever have 2 in front of a variable, that's next to notation, that's multiplication. So that means 2 times a triangle, or 2 triangles. Once again, this is greater than, so this side is heavier. It is greater than the 2 triangles. That would be your hanger for that situation. And now, for your lesson summary, as always, make sure that you read it over. Looking at this, once again, I'll just brush over this real quick. So, once again, they're talking back about the basketball game, and they're talking about things like 14.5 and 130 and 25 hundredths. So once again, if we're saying that someone scored more than 11 points, and this is our inequality, technically, these 2 numbers satisfy the inequality, right? 14.5 is greater than 11, and so is 130 and 25 hundredths. But there is no such thing as fractions of a point or decimals of a point in a basketball game. So, once again, it satisfies the inequality, but does it make sense? No. So our big idea, always pay attention to context to see if a value makes sense. No such thing as negative points or weights, or we could also say in certain contexts of fractions or decimals or what have you.